Hi, I'm John, and welcome to Edgetone Studios. Today I'm coming to you, as usual, 99% unscripted, to talk to you about a piece of gear that's in this very room. It's behind me there somewhere. And this piece of gear is my all-time favorite drum machine, but it's not a drum machine. Let's get to it. So before we get started, let's talk about the elephant in the room, namely the fact that, yes, on my shirt is my face looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger from the Terminator with something called John Con X. If you want to know the story about John Con, which is completely unrelated to music, but related to me, then leave a comment and maybe I'll make a video on what John Con is all about. Anyways, today I really wanted to talk to you about one of my favorite pieces of gear, the Vermona DRM1 MKIV. This is a modern, completely analog drum synthesizer, and I just think it's fantastic. So I figured this is the first sort of musical piece of gear that I'd do a video on. I've done things on my mixing board and my MIDI setup, but let's take some time to maybe start exploring some of this gear that's in my studio here. Okay, let's switch over to my close-up view. Okay, here we go, and I'll try not to bang the camera, which is right in front of me, or any of the lights, which are also right in front of me, and give you a demo here. So this is the Vermona DRM1 MKIV analog drum synthesizer. Now, Vermona has been making this for 25-ish years, not the MKIV, but the DRM1. So it's a well-established synthesizer. What we have here is a nice solid unit with very sturdy knobs, 8 different instruments, completely analog. There's no digital. There's no ability to save patches or save memory. This is a touch and play sort of instrument. Each of the instruments has its own settings, and then a pan, which I'll set center for now, and a volume. And then there's a master out, and I've got this hooked up right now, stereo out through the master out. So let's go through what this sounds like. This isn't really so much of a review as a demo of pretty well one of my favorite drum machines, even though it's not a full drum machine that I've ever used. So starting with the kick drum, each of the drum synthesizers have a trigger button so that you can hear the sound at the unit itself. There's no pattern programming in this. It is simply a synthesizer. To play any continuous pattern, you'd have to use a sequencer, which I will demonstrate shortly. But the first one is a kick sounding drum. There are 2 synthesizers called Drum 1 and Drum 2, which are basically identical controls, but I believe Drum 2 is a slightly higher frequency. There's what they call multi, which has multiple pitches involved in it, a snare type sound, 2 different hi-hats that can both be open or closed, and a clap. And this is one of my favorite claps of all time. So a couple of interesting things when you program this. You can hit a couple buttons. I believe it's hi-hat 2 and drum 1. I can't remember. Hold them down and it'll put it into programming mode. And then you can choose which MIDI note you want to trigger each sound by pressing the corresponding MIDI note on the keyboard or whatever you're using to trigger the drum machine. And there's also a mode where you can just do them in order so that when you play the first key, it'll be assigned to kick 1. The second key would be drum 1. Next key would be drum 2, multi, etc. The hi-hats have a feature where they have both an open and closed hi-hat. The closed hi-hat and the open hi-hat are one whole note apart on the keyboard. So whatever note you program for the closed, I believe, becomes also the open. So as I said, you can hear the sounds by triggering them here at, I believe it's full velocity, or maybe 100 out of 127 for the MIDI send. That's the default kick if you put everything to 12. That's the default drum 1 with everything to 12. That's drum 2, so you see the different frequencies. Multi, snare, hi-hat 1. And if you hold the hi-hat button down for a second, it'll switch to the short version of the hi-hat. So if you want to hear the difference between the long and the short. Hi-hat 2. And if you hold it down, same thing. And then the clap. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to get my phone here. And I'm going to load up Studio One Remote. So I've got Studio One Remote loading on my phone here. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll show it anyways. This is one of the reasons I love Studio One. I'm on Wi-Fi connected to my computer. My computer has Studio One loaded with the drum pattern, and I can do a reset here. Start playing, and we'll have craziness. And that's simply because I turned on every single drum with the pattern so we could hear them. So here's the kick. We've got pitch. There is a bend associated with the pitch. So no bend, a lot of bend, and the bend ties in with the time. So the longer the time, the longer the bend. So short time, a lot of bend. Long time, shorter bend. And then there's a decay, which is how long this rings out. So let's get rid of the bend and shorten the decay. Pitch up a bit. There is noise. So that's white noise, or maybe pink noise, but I believe it's white noise that you can add to the kick. And there's an attack factor, which is how snappy the beginning of the note is. So no noise, no attack. You get a very thuddy sort of sound. And the longer you let it decay, you can get these really interesting long kick sounds. So if you go quite deep, let's shorten it a bit. Add a bit of attack. A little bit of noise. And then the bend. Well, not that much time. So that's the kick. I could pan that to one side, pan it to the other side, put it in the middle. There's also an insert and an out for each of these instruments. So by default, they're all going out the mix out of the unit. But if you plug a stereo cable in here and plug it into your mixer, you can have a direct out for that kick, process it separately. Or if you stick a Y cable in, you can have an external effect through the Y cable come back in and go out the back for mixing. And I'll demonstrate that with some sort of pedal later. So let's turn off the kick. Let's go to drum. Let's go to the snare actually next. So the snare has a decay reverb, which is how long the reverb of the snare decays for. It's got an amount of reverb. So you can have a long reverby snare, less reverb. It's got noise on the decay, so when you add decay, you can get that sort of snap sound. You can have a slow attack. So in that case, it's sounding more like a fuzzy noise sound. Or fast attack for really snappy. And then there's a resonant filter. So without the resonance on, you're just opening the filter to the low pass filter. If you crank up the resonance, you can start getting some interesting stuff here. So if we bring up the kick again now. turn down the reverb a bit. Now with lots of resonance, you can add a pitch in there. And you can do stuff like so you can play the instrument basically. Okay, so let's go to a hi-hat. So I've got short and long hi-hat going here. So let's take the decay right down so that even the long hat is not that long. With a lot of decay, it's just going to ring out whether it's long or short anyways. There's a filter, so you can filter out the low. So this is a high-pass filter. Filter out the low frequencies. There's full frequency. This also has a bend to it, and the bend is either positive or negative bend, so bend down, or bend up. Now you'll hear that more if I change the resonance so that there you can hear it bending up and bending down. Add it backwards. So. And then there's a mix between the resonant pitch that's going on here and the default sound. So if I pitch this up, if we mix over to this side, you've got basically a tone generator to mix in, so you can have it sound a little bit more like a cymbal that way. And because there's two of these, you could turn one into a hi-hat and one into a cymbal if you wanted, and you can make more interesting sounds that are used for just effects as well. Get rid of some resonance, you get it sounding a bit more like a real snare, but it'll never sound like a real snare. That's not the point. If you want to use real snare, either record a real snare or use a sample. Okay, hi-hat number 2 here. Same sort of thing. It's just the same as hi-hat 1. I don't think there's really any difference between the two of them, other than if you get them both going, you can get two different sounds going. And you could have one left, one right. Do some weird stuff. Okay, let's go to the clap. Okay, I got a lot of reverb on there. So what do you got here? You've got a clap sound. You've got decay for the reverb and the reverb. So very little reverb with the long decay. You don't hear much, but as you bring it up, you get this massive decay on your reverb. And as you bring the decay time down, you can just get more of a traditional short reverb, almost like a gated sound. Okay, there's the clap tone itself. And as you bring it up, it becomes offset clap sounds, so it becomes more like multiple hands clapping. As you bring it down, it becomes more like a single sound. So with a bit of reverb. Now, this one also has a filter and resonance, so let's open the filter right out, no resonance. Get rid of the noise. Now you're hearing the clap with just reverb. There's just the clap. Not much to listen to, but once you start filtering it a bit, adding a bit of reverb, adding some noise. Here's the noise, sorry. And shifting the color of the noise. Now let's see if we can hear the noise without the clap much. So sort of higher, lower pitch noise. Put a bit of resonance in there. Turn the filter down. and get the clap going more as a clap. So you can get some pretty interesting sounds that don't sound exactly like a typical clap. And you can pitch that around. Okay, let's cover drum one here. So drum one. So this is basically a tone generator that has an FM frequency built into it as well. And I believe the wave goes between a square wave and a sine wave. So there's your sine wave, there's your square wave. Let's put it part way. You got a pitch. So this can get pretty kick drummy. Put a bit of bend on it. This one doesn't have a bend time. Instead, it's got the attack where the time function is. And the attack is super snappy. As you can see, very small adjustments can make quite a difference in the tone. And then you've got this FM ability. So FM is frequency modulation. So it's using one frequency to modulate the original frequency. So if we keep the bend off, depending on what we put the pitch to and the FM frequency to, we'll get different tones. And if it's a pulse wave, you'll get a slightly different sound to that tone than if it's a sine wave. Let's get rid of some of that attack. Let's bring in the kick. Bring in the other drum. I've got it on a different pattern, so we can maybe use less FM. A little bit more pulse wavy. Let's pan this one to this side so that I'm sure I can't hear it in the monitors here because I'm too far away from them, but the snare. And a little bit of hat. And quickly you can have some pretty cool sounding stuff now. I've kind of gone overboard with a lot of things. Bring up the clap. And then, of course, there's a master volume, so we could kill everything if we want. Okay, so I realized that I did not cover the multi-instrument. So let's turn the volume back up again. So, here's the multi. So what do you got for the multi? Okay, you've got pitch, pitch 2, pitch 3, and a high pass filter. So let's open the high pass. Bring up pitch 1, pitch 2, pitch 3, so when it's down, it's off. The volume comes up as you bring it up, and then the pitch raises. Now these can have a bend on them again. So this is your laser beam sounds. Bring down the high pass. Sorry, this is a high pass filter, so that's getting rid of the low end. I'm confusing myself. Let's get some low pitches. Might be able to hear the high pass a little bit better with these lower pitches. There's an attack for how snappy it is again. Let's get rid of the bend. If you bend a lot, and then the decay is how long it's going to ring out for. So if you want long laser beams, now it might be better off if I stop the sequencer here and just trigger this so you can hear it ringing out. So once you get it short enough, you can get something maybe more usable as a percussion instrument. Otherwise, it's more sound effects. So then you can... So there you can get something a little bit more percussive, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it's something that you don't see on like an 808. Right, you're gonna get some really cool sounds. And one of the things I love about this instrument is it's not trying to emulate another drum machine. It's a bunch of analog sounds that sound great. There's a lot you can do with it. So, okay, I've set up a distortion pedal and a delay with a Y cable. And so now if I play my beats here, that's just the clap going. So we can plug the Y cable into the clap. So my delay was already on, so now I can kick on the delay or click on a fuzz. Do some interesting things with that. So, I mean, pretty straightforward. I could do the same thing, let's say, with the snare. Let's get a better snare sound. Maybe not the best thing for fuzz. Now we can get a delay going. So you get the idea. You could mix it up with some effects on individual instruments in the mix, or you could just take the direct out and record them separately, process them separately, or put them through a mixing board separately. This unit's just fun. Anyways, that's the bulk of it. I'll probably do a little bit of a wrap up as well, but there you have it. So there you have it, me rambling on about a piece of gear I love again. You can hear this drum machine, drum synthesizer in action in our Waveform Mountain song, I Want It Back. I'll put a link to it above. It'll be in one of those corners. I never can remember the mirror image, which one it is. Check that out. The beginning is all the DRM1 for the drum sounds, and then the ending is some heavy metal drum sounds. So check that one out. It's in some of our other songs too, but that was the one I specifically remember using. Okay, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Cheers. I'll talk to you soon.